If you read about Mormonism, you will hear all this stuff about poor little banking magnate Joseph Smith getting chased out of whatever state he went into, being persecuted for his religious beliefs. He was just some good old prophet trying to tell everybody what he knew about God, and they would be nothing but mean to him and would chase him out of whatever territory he went into, trying to convert people and teach people about what he learned about God. And the poor guy would be chased out of whatever state by angry mobs of unruly Americans. The truth was that Joseph Smith's primary role was to fool the people into signing over their property to him and stealing their land. So Joseph Smith wasn't necessarily chased out of so many states, but he definitely went running out of all the states that he went into, carrying all the deeds to everybody's properties that he suckered. And he would run to the nearest bank, the nearest English-controlled bank, to cash his next big check. So quickly Joseph Smith became the guy with a bad reputation. He was the guy with a scam to make everyone rich, but then would lose everybody's properties to some shadowy network of banks. So eventually, the English government, Joseph Smith's bosses, had to write Joseph Smith out of the Mormon script. So the story went on that Joseph Smith was arrested for the third or fourth time. And instead of being let out of the jail like he usually was, this time an angry mob stormed the jail and killed Joseph Smith. So obviously this angry mob of pissed off American citizens did not like the idea of Joseph Smith getting arrested on charges of fraud and treason. So they stormed the jail, broke in, and killed him. So I believe that this is a lie. And Joseph Smith was actually let out of his jail cell again. And he was sent to Canada or England, or even given a new identity and continued serving the English government as an agent somewhere else in the US. And at that point, Brigham Young took over as the leader of the Mormon religion. And again, Brigham Young is the guy that would often visit the province known as Upper Canada in Canada, which is controlled by England. And Brigham Young is reported to also go on missions to England. So Brigham Young was just another agent of the English government. So the next step was the Mormons to round everyone up, to go out to the promised land, into the area now called Utah. And that included everyone who had just lost their lands. So their only choice then was for these new converts to Mormonism to leave their properties that had been taken over by the bank and go with all their Mormon buddies into the area now called Utah. And at that time, Utah was still populated by American Indians and Mexicans. And what is not well known is that the Mormons, as a military arm of England, began to wipe out large amounts of the Native Americans that lived in Utah. And what is also largely unknown is that the Mormons also killed large amounts of their fellow Mormons, mostly their new converts who had recently lost their lands to the Joseph Smith banking scam. So once getting all their people completely off the grid, out in the middle of nowhere, after marching all their people out to Utah, the Mormon leadership, the Mormon priesthood, would then see who had the insolence to actually disagree with the Mormon leadership on how things should be run in the Mormon community, and then accuse these people as being anti-Mormon, and then kill them under blood atonement Mormon law. It is a very large part of religious cults and secret societies to move people away from their families and their homes and march them off into what they call the promised land. They get all their people off the grid. And this has happened endless times throughout history, including recently when the religious group known as the People's Temple moved 1,000 followers out of America into South America to a place called Jonestown, and then all of them wound up dead in a supposed mass suicide. So without any protection or freedom with their new cult or religious group, many families are then killed by that cult, secret society, or religious group in ritualistic or religious styled executions. All the while, the leadership of that religion says that they have the right to murder anybody, and their right to do that is ordained by God. They have the religious right to do that. And furthermore, it is the religious duty to kill everyone unfit to be a Mormon. And they will make this known often by disobeying the Mormon leadership. Then, those who take part in these religious executions are then said to be the higher ranking inner group that represents a higher level in the religion. So these higher ranking members all understand why secrecy is needed concerning their religion. They understand the need to suppress anyone who dares criticize their religion. And that is because all of these higher ranking members of these different religions are all accomplices to ritual murder. And they will go down for murder and all sorts of crimes if their religion is ever exposed. So the inside group of any cult or religion is always comprised of those who are directly involved with the criminal acts of the temple or the church. And that is the same with every religion on the planet. So, from that off-the-grid, isolated region in Utah is where the Mormons again spread out all over the western states and into California, involving themselves in all sorts of enterprises, from the railroads to roads to communications. So I'm going to end this documentary with a quote from William Cooper as he read from the book The God Makers, which is written by Ed Decker and Dave Hunt. Utah, and particularly Brigham Young University, is one of the prime recruiting areas for the Central Intelligence Agency. According to Brigham Young University spokesman Dr. Gary Williams, quote, "We have never had any trouble placing anyone who has ever applied to the CIA. Every year, they take almost anyone who applies," end quote. And again, Brigham Young University is the main university in Utah. It is the Mormon University. This may at least partially explain the reported close tie between the Mormon Church and the CIA. A disproportionate number of Mormons arrive at the higher levels of the CIA, FBI, military intelligence, armed forces, and all levels of city, state, and federal government, including the Senate, Congress, Cabinet, and White House staff.